The first weekend of December rolled into the mountains near Flagstaff, Arizona, with a hush of snow and the slow crunch of tires on gravel driveways. Miles away from the city lights, tucked between pine forests and old ranch roads, sat an estate that looked less like a vacation rental and more like a modern fortress masquerading as a luxury lodge. It was the sort of place you booked not because you needed the space, but because you needed people to see that you could afford it. The driveway alone could park 15 cars nose to tail. The stone walkways were heated, so not a flake of snow dared linger. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the main hall, looking out over a stretch of trees so tall they blotted out the sunrise. And at the very center of it all, like a quiet king on his marble stage, stood the chessboard, carved from Italian marble and American oak, the centerpiece of Gregory Alton's idea of relaxation. Gregory had arrived first, naturally. He always did. He liked to be the first impression when his guests stepped out of their SUVs, stamping cold off their boots. He liked the handshake at the door, the one that said, "I paid for this, and for you to be here." At 54, Gregory Alton wore his success like armor. Tailored cashmere. A watch so heavy it left an imprint on his wrist when he took it off at night. His hair had gone mostly silver, but he didn't mind. He thought it made him look distinguished, like the CEOs he'd studied when he was still clawing his way up from a windowless office on the south side of Chicago. Those days felt so far away now they might as well have belonged to someone else. Inside the lodge, the staff moved like ghosts. They always did. The catering crew from Dallas arrived that morning, 12 people in starched white shirts, black aprons, and soft-soled shoes that made no noise against the stone floors. They laid out canapes that cost more than the average mortgage payment and poured wine that no one actually tasted, just swirled and compared like trophies. Among them was Camille Bennett, 51, quiet-eyed, wearing her uniform like a shield against the cold air of other people's wealth. She had arrived with a suitcase that fit neatly in the staff quarters by the garage, a plain black thing with a broken zipper she kept closed with a safety pin. When the agency called her 2 days ago, she hadn't planned to say yes. She'd sworn she wouldn't do another last-minute gig so far from Phoenix, not during December, not when the roads iced up and the mountain passes turned slick. But the pay was double, and the voice on the phone said urgent, high profile, good tip potential. So she'd packed her sneakers, her second-best uniform, and the tiny travel chest set she kept at the bottom of her bag like a secret. She hadn't played in years, not properly. Not since her mother's final hospital stay, not since the car repairs ate the savings she'd tucked away for online courses she never got to finish. But she kept the board anyway, the same way some people keep old letters or baby shoes, proof that once, there was more. By Friday evening, the estate filled like a hive. SUVs eased up the long driveway in neat intervals, each one delivering a man or woman in a coat too thin for mountain air but perfect for fireplace photos. Their laughter carried through the entry hall, polite and brittle, the way it always did when the people drinking together would rather be negotiating behind closed doors. Camille moved among them like clockwork. Napkins folded into perfect triangles. Champagne flutes stacked on silver trays. She watched them the way she always did, half out of habit, half out of curiosity she'd never admit out loud. Who they greeted first. Who laughed too loud. Who rolled their eyes when Gregory wasn't looking. It wasn't personal, this work, but Camille made it so, a quiet study of power done in borrowed houses. Somewhere near the back hall, Janice Harper noticed. Janice, who would have looked more at home in a corner office than here by the fire, clutched a glass of red wine with both hands like it might warm something deeper than her fingers. She'd made VP of marketing 3 years ago, which was impressive in Gregory's empire, if you didn't mind staying up at all hours rewriting briefs that landed on your desk an hour before dawn. Janice watched Camille sweep past with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. They made eye contact for a half second. Janice nodded, soft and small. Camille nodded back, even smaller. That was enough. For now. Upstairs, the bedrooms smelled faintly of lavender oil and the expensive detergent the housekeepers used to fluff pillowcases. Camille had made 3 of those beds herself that afternoon, smoothing the covers so perfectly that sometimes she startled herself at the satisfaction she found in the crease of a blanket. She'd texted her daughter between turnovers, "I'll be late Sunday. Weather's bad. Keep the porch light on." Her daughter texted back a single heart. Camille read it twice, tucked her phone away, and moved on to the next room. Gregory spent the first night entertaining by the fireplace. He told stories from his early days, half true, half borrowed, all performed. He talked about his first big client like it was folklore. About the deal in Berlin where he'd sealed a contract over schnapps at 3 in the morning. About the man he once fired on Christmas Eve because bad performance doesn't take holidays. The executives laughed when he laughed, winced when he paused, always watching his eyes for clues. Was that the joke? Or the lesson? Camille passed through behind them. They didn't see her, not really. Not yet. The next morning. Saturday dawned soft, pale, and cold. A layer of frost turned the stone patio into a slip hazard for anyone foolish enough to wander out with slippers and coffee. Camille was up before all of them, ironing napkins, brewing the first carafe of coffee, checking the checklist she'd memorized 2 shifts ago. By 9 a.m., the lodge buzzed with voices. Some gathered near the fire. Some retreated to private corners with hushed phone calls, pretending to be on vacation but checking email every 3 minutes. Gregory made his rounds, a hand on a shoulder here, a wink there, always reminding people who had brought them to this mountain in the first place. In the dining room, Janice sat alone for a while, scribbling notes on a pad. She looked up as Camille cleared the table nearby. "Thank you," Janice said, her voice small in the big room. Camille nodded. She didn't say "you're welcome," she didn't need to. Out back, the catering crew unpacked crates of seafood flown in overnight. Camille caught snatches of their chatter. Someone's kid had a fever. Someone's car had a cracked windshield. None of it mattered to the people inside, but to Camille, it was familiar, grounding. Their world, humming beneath the world they served. The ritual. That evening, after dinner, a 6-course affair served with choreographed timing, the guests drifted toward the main hall like moths to a glow. Gregory stood by the chessboard, a tumbler of scotch dangling from his fingers. He tapped the rim against the board as he spoke, explaining for the 5th time how business and chess were the same: you win or you don't. There's no in-between. They nodded. They laughed on cue. But by now, the bourbon had warmed their edges, some looked tired, others bored. Janice stood near the back, arms crossed tight against her chest. Gregory's eyes drifted, scanning for something, anything, to spark the room again. And then he saw her. Camille, crossing the hall with a tray of fresh glasses, head down, moving quiet as winter wind. Gregory grinned. He didn't think about it, he never did when the joke was on someone beneath him. "You there," he called out, voice cutting through every half-drunk conversation. Camille froze. A tray of crystal rattled softly in her hands. "You play chess?" Gregory asked, loud enough to bounce off the marble floors. She paused, the kind of pause that meant she weighed 10,000 things behind her eyes. Then she looked up, met his gaze. "A little," she said, her voice level, even gentle. Gregory smirked. "Come on now. Let's see what the help can do." Someone laughed. Someone else coughed. Janice's eyes flicked to Camille, then to Gregory, then back to Camille again, like she was watching a slow car crash she couldn't stop. Camille exhaled. She set the tray down on a side table, steady, precise. Wiped her palms on her apron. Stepped forward. "Sure," she said, and the word landed like a stone in a quiet pond. "If you want to play, I'll play." Act 2, the game. Camille stepped forward, her sneakers silent on the polished wood floor. The hush that settled over the room wasn't forced, it rose naturally, like air sucked out through a vent no one could find. A few people shifted awkwardly, their drinks frozen halfway to their lips. Janice tucked her phone into her pocket, resisting the urge to film. Gregory pulled out the heavy carved chair across from his own. He did it with a flourish, half mocking, half playful, like a ringmaster inviting the clown into the cage. "Sit," he said, his grin sharp around the edges. Camille didn't flinch at his tone. She lowered herself into the seat carefully, adjusting her apron at her waist like she was about to serve coffee instead of battle him at his own altar. Gregory sat down too, leaning his elbows on the edge of the marble board. He spun a white knight between his fingers, tapping it against the table just to hear the click. "Ever played on a board like this?" he asked, loud enough for the circle to catch every syllable. Camille didn't look at the pieces. She looked him in the eyes, then at his watch, then back to the knight in his hand. Always fidgeting, she noted to herself. Men like Gregory hated stillness, it forced them to see what they'd rather bury. She rested her hands in her lap. "Doesn't matter what the board's made of," she said softly. "Only how you play it." A ripple of uneasy laughter. Someone near the back raised their brows, maybe impressed, maybe just waiting for the punchline. Gregory's jaw flexed. He set the knight down, arranging it precisely on its square. "White goes first," he said, voice dripping with the polite edge of a blade. He moved his pawn forward 2 spaces, king's pawn, aggressive, theatrical. The kind of move that told the room, "Watch me flex." Camille studied the board for 3 full seconds. She felt the eyes on her, felt them land on her shoulders like warm coins. She moved her pawn, bishop's pawn, subtle, a test move. Gregory cracked his knuckles and narrated his next move like a sports commentator, classic Italian opening. Textbook stuff. They teach it to rookies to make them feel clever. Camille's lips curved almost imperceptibly, not a smile, just a flicker of something deeper. "And you're still using it," she thought but didn't say. She moved her knight, the piece gliding over the marble with a soft scrape. Around them, the circle tightened. Janice slid closer, hands folded in front of her like she was about to pray. Alan Drake, the CFO, who had once lost $500,000 on Gregory's gut instinct and never said a word, leaned his bulk forward, his eyes darting between Camille's steady hands and Gregory's twitching mouth. Gregory didn't like the silence. He never did. He cleared his throat, chuckled low. "You know, I once beat a hedge fund shark in 6 moves. Guy tried to bluff me, forgot the board doesn't care how much you're worth." He moved again, bishop out, clearing his queen's path. "Bold. Cocky." Camille answered with a quiet sidestep of her knight. The lines on the board began to crisscross in her mind like a map only she could read. Inside Camille's head. Years ago, 2 decades now, she'd learned to see the whole board before touching a piece. Her Uncle Robert's voice drifted up from the shadows of her memory. "The pieces are just people, baby girl. Watch how they move when they think nobody's watching." She'd played him every Saturday on a plastic board balanced on 2 milk crates behind the tire shop. Robert had never gone easy on her. Not once. And when she lost, which she did for a whole year before she didn't, he'd slap her shoulder, pour 2 sodas, and say, "Next time, watch the hands. The eyes lie. The hands never do." Gregory's hands told her everything now. The way he drummed the table, tapped his tumbler, squeezed the stem of his glass so tight she worried it might snap. He wasn't playing her, he was playing for the room. Performing. And Camille had already decided, this would be his mistake. 5 moves deep. By the 5th move, the room's laughter had shriveled into tight throats and polite coughs. Camille's knight locked down Gregory's left flank. His bishop lunged forward, aiming for her center. She didn't flinch, didn't even look at him as she slid her pawn diagonally, blunting his offense before it could bloom. Where'd you say you learned again? Gregory asked, his grin a little stiff now. Camille's eyes didn't rise from the board. College. Where? He pushed, like a kid prodding a bruise to see if it still hurt. Fisk. She said it flat, clear, like the name itself was a quiet rebuke. Someone near the circle, the junior exec named Jason, fresh from an MBA he wouldn't stop reminding people about. Mouthed Fisk to his neighbor. They nodded back. Respect shifted in the air like a draft nobody could block. Computer science, Camille added, as if it cost her nothing to offer the truth now. Full ride. Gregory's chuckle was tight, forced. And now you're folding my napkins. Funny how life works. Camille's hand paused above her rook. Her eyes lifted, met his. Life works how you play it. Or don't. She moved her rook. The quiet clack of marble on marble sounded louder than his laugh. The room starts to tilt. Janice whispered to Alan, look at her spacing. She's not defending. She's circling him. Alan's eyes narrowed, the same way they did when spreadsheets didn't add up. He doesn't see it yet, he murmured back. He thinks she's playing checkers. Gregory shifted in his seat. He pulled at the collar of his cashmere sweater. His mind scrambled for the next clever quip but found only the squeak of leather as he leaned forward to study the board. Camille's voice floated over the tension, soft, not smug, you trap yourself when you disrespect the board. A memory, Uncle Robert again, chuckling on a plastic stool, and people. Same rules, girl. You disrespect the game remembers. Gregory forced a laugh, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. He moved his queen like a hammer, trying to smash a door she hadn't even closed. Camille moved her bishop, a sidestep that opened a door behind him instead. Check. A ripple, small gasps, the faint clink of ice in a glass. Gregory's eyes darted from piece to piece like they'd betrayed him. The real game. Somewhere in the circle, Jason, bold with youth, pulled out his phone and started recording. Janice didn't stop him. She didn't want to look away, either. Gregory's knuckles turned white around his tumbler. So you really play, he muttered, like the words tasted sour. Camille shrugged gently, eyes on the board. I never stopped. His voice rose, brittle at the edges. Let's call it a warm-up. Best 2 out of 3. Camille tilted her head, calm as sunrise. You sure you want that? He didn't answer. He just moved another pawn, sloppy, desperate for air. Camille's rook glided to the far corner. The trap sealed with a whisper. Check again. The CFO whistled under his breath. Jason's phone caught it all, the marble board, Gregory's twitching jaw, Camille's steady hands. You invited me to play, she said, not cruel, not mocking. Just a fact, dropped like a stone in a still pond. So I'm playing. Gregory's voice dropped to a mumble only the front row could hear. You trying to embarrass me? Camille didn't blink. No, sir. Just playing fair. She could feel it now, the shift in the room. The hush that fell when people realized the person they thought invisible is actually the only one worth watching. Gregory's last move was frantic, a queen swung wide, a feint for control. Camille's fingers paused over her knight. She remembered her mother's voice that last winter, frail but firm, don't waste your time proving you're smart, Camille. Just be smart. Let them catch up when they're ready. She placed her knight down. Checkmate in 2. End of the match. No one clapped. No one breathed. Gregory's mouth opened and closed, a fish pulled from water, gasping for something he couldn't buy. Camille sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap like a chapel statue. For a heartbeat, the whole room held its breath. Then Janice said it, soft but clear, he's done. Gregory stared at the pieces, like they'd conspired against him. His voice cracked, You were supposed to miss that. Camille rose slowly. She placed her palm flat on the table, steadying herself, or maybe steadying him. I never miss what I respect. She began to gather the pieces, one by one, clicking them back into their places. She didn't gloat. She didn't bow. She just reset the board like the lesson hadn't cost her a thing. And Gregory sat there, CEO of an empire, king of his private mountain, while a maid in plain black shoes showed him how small a crown really is when you wear it without humility.